It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To all you sports fans, did you know you can stream this podcast on Spotify right now? It's easy. Open the app on your mobile device or desktop, click on the Browse channel, then click on the podcast section. You can also stream on your smart speaker. Now it's that much easier for you to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest in all things sports thanks to Spotify.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Bills. I'm your host, Kevin Masseri, here with Jason Shannon. Jason, what's going on today, my man?
Not much, just following all of the news.
Sure.
Things change every second. Free agency's been hard and fast hitting, and it seems like now maybe we're slowing down a little bit. Brandon Beane had said a couple days ago that we're not going to be making the ticker anymore, and we haven't really changed that. But we're still adding guys every day and improving the depth, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, and today, we're going to be bringing you the heavy-hitting local news here on the Locked On Bills podcast. For one, we're going to be talking about the recent signings that the Bills did make yesterday and today, and then as well as breaking news of Zay Jones is hotel/vandalism thing that just went down a moment ago, as well as talking a little bit about trading up. So I guess we'll start for now just at the top with Zay Jones. I do want to start there, and then we'll get into the signings and we'll get into some of the trade up stuff. Is it just every time we record, Jason? I couldn't.
Right. Luckily, that happened about 3 minutes before we recorded, because I don't know if I could have expressed my shock on during the podcast if that broke right during it.
And he apparently had a nude, bloody arrest after penthouse meltdown is the title of the TMZ article. It is Zay Jones, looks like with his brother, did end up getting arrested. Caleb Jones saved him from jumping out of a 30th floor window. Really not sure what's up with that. It was Caleb's girlfriend's apartment. So I don't know, just had one of those really crazy, bizarre nights, it seems like. And luckily, it looks like only going to be a felony vandalism, which still a felony is pretty high in the vandalism scale, as well as he is being held at the medical ward of LA County. So it's unclear where he is at right now in terms of like his progress. So, I mean, what are your initial reactions on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, hope he gets help and something like that doesn't happen again, because it just broke. Nobody knows exactly what the story is. The initial stuff doesn't sound good. Certainly the photos that came out don't look good. It's not a good look, but I do hope that he can turn it around and move past this. I think there's probably two levels you look at it. You look at it from, three, really. I mean, the legal side of it's going to decide a lot of it. It doesn't appear that right now that there's any sort of physical harm done to anybody else, so that's a good thing. The second thing is what the team thinks of it, and when they want character players in here, what are the ramifications of that in terms of their eyes of the coaches and in the general staff of the Buffalo Bills, the community, all of that. And then third is what the league's going to say. And I don't know if we have a ton of felony vandalism sort of precursors to this that we could kind of go off of. The NFL sometimes is also just very random.
Sure.
But I'm glad that he was not violent with anybody else. It doesn't appear that there's a drug arrest. So that's good in terms of just general, glad that nobody got hurt besides him apparently, and also that the league doesn't have that as well to go against him.
Yeah, and, he would like to first, I guess, read the statement released just by the Bills. We are aware of the incident involving Zay Jones. We are still in the process of gathering more information on this matter. At this point, we have no further comment. Pretty stern and pointed response. I mean, they're waiting to see first question is I always have with these things is, I guess, how do you get to this state, right? But that's a question for a different day. Who's filming this? Is it his brother can't be the one getting him in trouble. Is it just, you think, someone in the apartment complex? Like, how do these things?
I also think that there's a chance that's, especially if that's an expensive sort of, they called it a penthouse. Like if that's an expensive security, that they probably have security cameras there. So that's possible where that could have came from. I do think that makes this different
Well, the
situation.
angles
Like,
is someone walking. Like
is
that.
there?
Yeah.
So,
For sure. It looks like
I mean, but a place like that is going to have cameras everywhere, and
maybe even a cop. I don't know. You can't really tell, but it's definitely
it's
someone filming.
very possible. Yeah, I mean, you at this point, it could be a body camera. It could be
Sure.
anything like that.
I
Even though
think
if something crazy like that's going on and there's a bunch of people around, somebody probably is filming that at this point in this day and age.
Yeah,
Everybody's got their phone out while they're talking to people, let alone seeing this crazy situation. So
sure.
I wouldn't doubt anything at this point. But again, if you do something like this in a casino, or you do this in a hotel, or you do this in an expensive high-rise apartment, it's going to be found eventually. And I think that's what makes a difference than maybe some other situations. Like, I don't think there was, I'm trying to compare it to other things that were a little weird. I don't think there was any photos of Chandler Jones or Chantrell Henderson, for instance, where I think that this just makes it more of a bad look, and it probably forces the NFL, not that this is big news, not only for the Buffalo Bills, but also for the NFL in general now, that they're probably going to take quicker action on this and have more proof in terms of what to do about it.
I wonder when this happened.
I mean, I follow him on most social media, and he's been in Buffalo the last couple of weeks.
It must have just happened.
I think it's probably something that just happened because we don't have any sort of update with in terms of where he's at right now. So
interesting.
I hope the best for him. I hope he bounces back from that. It's not only like a scary situation, it's also embarrassing for him. Not to say that it's right in any way, or
if it was just like a
one-time
thing, it is really embarrassing. If it is a mental issue, I hope he gets it corrected. But if it's not, I mean, it's just one of those things where you're an NFL player, you're in a high-rise penthouse, you don't have any flexibility that maybe someone else would with this kind of thing. But it's a bummer. I mean, talking about the Bill transition now until we get more details, and we'll keep you posted here on Locked On. But transitioning to the Bills and what could possibly happen. I mean, the NFL has no precedent on this. You really never know if it's something that just gets thrown away, or you see a crazy 4-game suspension. My opinion is 2 games that he appeals down to 1, and they takes it and he sits out. Is there any ramifications for how many games you think, and do you think it's something we now need to, he's definitely our 3rd receiver, if not our 2nd.
Yeah, it definitely, it just broke. So I'd have to go through and see if there's anything similar. I'm sure there's similar sorts of situations that may have happened that might set a sort of precedent at this point. But most of the proof that we have right now of suspensions being handed down outside of the jurisdiction of the law have been drug tests, drug arrests, and violence, especially domestic violence issues. So there might be a little less to go off of, but that doesn't mean that Rodgers not going to make a ruling on this. And usually the worse it looks to the NFL and the more embarrassed he's by it, the more likely he is to move swift and quickly about it. So right. I would be a little worried about this from that standpoint. If we're gonna talk about it that way, I think it comes at an interesting time where maybe we were thinking that there were linebacker signings to be made and O-line signings to be made, that those might be places in the draft that we go. It seems like wide receivers now had more of an impetus at this point, and it wasn't something that they were expecting. I think I was really thinking that maybe they could go in thinking that he was going to be their second option, and that's looking highly unlikely at this point. I'd say
like he's going to need a redemption story. It does look like it happened yesterday, based on what I'm seeing. Could be wrong with that, but I am seeing. He did tweet yesterday, "Don't hate because you have to watch someone receive their blessings. Be patient, your time is coming." But apparently it happened right after that. So we'll see. It does seem like from people I haven't had a chance to watch the audio or watch with audio, does seem like it's disturbing in terms of mentally. So we don't know that what's going on there.
I'm not going to assume,
but it doesn't
what's going on. But it does point towards something yeah.
So I guess that is another, with audio that, this is another factor that can work against you. So hopefully he's okay, first and foremost, and anyone in that situation is okay and gets resolved. But, he is being held right now, so we hope all is well. And all we can do is we'll look forward to him being healthy and hopefully playing this season.
I was really excited for him in terms of I really thought that he had an injury that bothered him. Just looking at the way he played in college and had an absurdly low drop rate. He was still running good routes even in Buffalo. I was really looking for him to have your full off-season healthy going into the season, knowing what the role you were going to have, and this certainly looks like it's going to hamper that a bit.
Yeah, it is. And definitely looks like the rookie year got to him. Maybe some of the criticism does seem like someone who might, kind of check that out and kind of be affected by it. So yeah, there's going to be some ramifications. The Bills are going to have to do something at that position anyways, definitely now with only one receiver on the roster, minus him. One hopefully very good one in Kelvin Benjamin. But you have Andre Holmes, your prototypical 4th/5th and special teamer. You got some, I guess, Rod Streeter still hanging around, Malachi Dupree and Brandon Riley. But other than that, I mean, you don't have it's 2 and 3 right now. Maybe even a 4, depending on what you would consider Holmes. Obviously now is probably going to be the same role he had last year. So they need a 2 and a 3 if something's wrong with Zay. It is rumored that 10 teams reached out to recently cut today Alan Hearns, and the Bills are said to be one of them. He's taking his first visit tomorrow with the Jets. So we'll see if they sign him up there or if he does go on more visits. So we'll have to see where that amounts to. But I do think they'll start to play in this free agency now that it's cooled down a little bit. Contracts are getting lower. They're definitely going to, I think, officially now need to at least sign someone that's third receiver-ish. I mean, you have, beside Hearns, you got Terrell Pryor still out there. You have Mike Wallace, Jordan Matthews, obviously, Kendall Wright, Jeremy Maclin. So you got a couple of guys who can come in and get it done, and as well as Deontay Thompson. There's a contract out for him. So anything jump out to you as a third guy you'd be interested in, or even fourth guy?
It was probably less attractive before, but I think Deontay Thompson, knowing the system and producing a little bit, definitely makes him more interesting at this point as a person who can just jump in and did have some big games. I worry about Maclin at this point in his career in terms of the kind of productivity that you're going to get out of him. I mean, Baltimore's been a black hole for wide receivers really lately, so I'm not sure.
And they still sign everybody under the sun and fake fail people, and interesting strategy there with their receiving core. They'll literally bring in anybody and fail Ryan Grant, and then Ryan Grant goes and signs and passes his physical. To me, it seemed like Crabtree got cut and they went and signed him.
I think that's probably what happens. Or by time stuff happened with Ryan Grant, they had already gotten a ton of feedback about how bad that signing was, like in terms of money. I don't know if you really should be able to do that. Like,
it is a gentleman's agreement and should affect your relationship with that agent /
I'm sure it did. I mean, I think that probably affected a few relationships at this point.
Sure. And I would have to imagine they calculatedly know that, so his agent must not represent who they feel would end up backfiring on them, in my opinion. But still, that's a major thing to do, is back out of a deal like that. Anyways, they did end up signing Crabtree to 3 years, $21 million, as well as John Brown, 1 for 5. So
he would have been interesting.
Jordan
Matthews is still. I mean,
2 for 8 range now for Jordan. 2 for 7. Like,
I wasn't impressed by really anything he did last year, but it was his worst season. Maybe he just wasn't good with Tyrod.
Philadelphia too. Did you see that about
what
he ended up blaming Philly? For major injury concerns. They didn't treat him right, and there's a couple of things going on there.
I don't know if he disliked playing here too much to not come back, but again, he's been with these players. He's friends with some of these guys. His market value probably isn't what he thought it was going to be, and he gets to see that, like a guy like EJ Gaines as well, where those guys are waiting right now, and maybe they'll take a 1 year, a low 2 year to go and prove themselves again.
Sure, and I know a lot of people thought, they didn't love the production from Kelvin, but at this point, I am super glad we traded the 85th overall pick for him.
Yeah,
there's no doubt at this point. If we had a plethora group and we had made that move, and it was like, I don't know, between all the picks we have and what he required and the group now that we have there, I mean, it's a blessing we have.
It was important. Yeah, for sure.
number one receiver he's a number one receiver. Is he the best number one in the league? No. Is he 15 to 25? I think he is.
I think he can be for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that he showed it then, but at the same time, he's got to be healthy.
Yeah, he's got to
get a healthy season out of him.
Play of the game,
right?
In the Bills uniform. So,
yeah, I think you got to see briefly the kind of talent that he is, and I think he can put it together. And graded out well on the plays that he played in last year, especially in Carolina. And
looking forward to him with a different quarterback too.
That's not a position I'm worried about. Also, yeah, I just think the fit with him and Tyrod. I don't think that they were. I think he was the best player for for a quarterback who was
right. He wants separation.
Right, he wants the separation. He's not maybe as anticipatory as other quarterbacks are, right? Or will just gun it up like Cam Newton. I think that maybe a new guy in there would help them.
Right. And we'll see. I do believe that they'll bring in a free agent. At what level? Don't know. Are we talking about like a old school, like Andre Roberts, Louis Murphy, Marcus Wheaton, Jeff Janis type of signing? Probably. But those guys aren't even like guaranteed to make a team. I still think they make like a small step up from that and like try like a Bryce Butler or something that, they try that someone will make the team at least. So we'll see, especially now with the Zay Jones.
Yeah. And I'm just glad that now we're doing this sort of out of that first wave, because I honestly think that the guys that are left aren't that far back from your Taylor Gabriels and Ryan Grants, and those guys went and got a bunch of money, and I think that we can get somebody for a lot less money and not a lot less.
And what's exciting to me, and it's like he's older, but Mike Wallace, he goes for 700 yards plus every single year.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you use him at this point, because his speed isn't the only thing that gets him by anymore, because he's lost a bunch of it. So, right. We'll see. He's not a guy I would be against bringing in, but I would have been against bringing him on a deal like some of these other guys got, who are getting 500 yards every season. I
agree with that. So, and he's got the production even last year, 52 for 748 and 4 touchdowns to get that type of weird money. And the year prior, he went for 72 catches for 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's got the recent production. The last 2 years combined, he's got some really good numbers. I think he's a fine number 3. He's a guy I'd like to entertain. Allen Hurns might creep up into that weird 2 for 12 range or 2 for 17 or 2 for 15 range. So I don't know if we'll play in that. I've always liked Hurns. But if you could have the same problems with him as you have Macklin, even though he's younger. Did the same thing, went back-to-back for 400. He's faced some injuries in both last year and 2016.
Right. There is no guarantee that Hurns is going to come back to the player that he pretty much only exhibited for one season. So,
right.
We'll see on that. Again, that's another guy that I think would be good to bring in at this point. But I also I think that those are guys to bring in if we're going to do it. But man, we keep saying it here, like draft receivers. Because these guys get just absurd money after 4 or 5 seasons. It takes up such a ball and chain on your cap, and really getting the same level of talent in the guys early in their careers now. Maybe not year 1, but years 2 through 4. You're getting the same type of player, even better than, again, the guys who have been signing in Chicago besides Robinson or your Grants or whoever. You can be getting those guys in the draft, and it's not even necessarily in the first round. But I think that you just have to keep pounding receiver in the draft, because I think it's been a great situation for a team like Pittsburgh, who goes and drafts basically a talented 3rd, 4th rounder every single season, and they're like 5 for their last 6 now at this point. So. That's a strategy that I would be interested in doing. It's hard to even predict what's going to happen in the draft anymore, because we have no idea how many picks we're going to have.
Right. It is a tough situation, but one I think that they need to address depending on their pick situation. And getting into it a little bit more, the Bills did sign Marshall Newhouse to a 1-year contract, offensive tackle, Russell Bodine to a 2-year deal for $5 million, same contract as Groy has. And just a minimum contract, 1 year for $1 million with Ramon Humber, their strong side special teamer, fourth linebacker
Hopefully
guy.
that's it. Yeah.
And they are visiting with like every single interior linebacker on the market, Dansby. And they've also had in Minter, as well as, for some reason, Will Compton is a guy that people are interested in, I think, because of his demeanor. Even though at 36, I think Dansby's the best player. He still had a pretty good year last year.
He's been pretty okay. I think he had a little bit of a down year on his but he's been signing these short-term deals and going back from Miami and Arizona all the time. But really still putting up pretty good seasons. So I think you could look at him as a 1 year sort of, we'll call him our bridge linebacker. And, because right now there are a lack of options. And I think
sometimes you got to take a bridge. Everyone's like, well, I want a guy for 5 years. And me too. If you had a guy at 5 years at every position, like,
right,
you're in really good shape. So sometimes you have to take a bridge. I mean, right now with your assets, you might need a receiver and a quarterback. You might need to take a bridge player in Dansby's stature to play middle linebacker.
I am Matt Williamson, host of the Locked On NFL podcast. NFL free agency is at a frenzy right now. I will be breaking down every major move in the league each day, as well as preparing you for the NFL draft. Keep it locked into the Locked On NFL podcast.
No, I think there was definitely maybe a fundamental shift that probably will continue to, now that receiver has become such more of a pressing need right now. I think they might be taking the bridge aspect, the sort of the approach possibly with middle linebacker,
with linebacker in general,
and definitely with the offensive line. I do think that those Bodine and Newhouse signings, who are two guys who just aren't spectacular. I would not expect either of them to start, but they could start.
Ton of starts between them too.
Vlad Dukas started, but I mean, both of them graded out really poorly last year. If you look at anybody's comments on Bodine, they're very glad to see him gone. But you know what? You have that much of experience, tons of starts, not a huge contract for either of them. I think that they could, possibly move around the line. And I think that having that sort of experience, and it happens all the time with offensive linemen, even guys that we thought were scrubs that we ended up cutting, they go find their way with another team, whether it's another offensive line coach, whether it's a system that fits them better. I can't tell you those guys weren't good, but I can tell you that I think every person in the league thought that Vlad Dukas was a below replacement level player before we signed him, and actually turned out to be pretty decent, despite maybe a couple rough games from here to there. That guy was a starter for us last year. Not that we can't go and improve it, but anyways, I do think with that strategy, I think we're saying this is a bit of a weak offensive line year. We need to allocate these picks for other things, whether it be the trade up to a quarterback that everybody thinks is going to happen, or whether it's now a receiver, or whether it is to go get a middle linebacker. I think we thought we need to go get those picks. I don't know if we can waste a 2 on a guard this year or a tackle. So I think that's definitely been part of that strategy.
Yeah, I think they're going to put those guys all in a mishmash and pick the best 5 personally. Yeah. And Groy, it's Groy versus Bodine. You have obviously Newhouse versus Mills. You have Miller again, the famous Miller versus Dukas.
Right.
And I think you're obviously going to give it to Richie, who's technically a bridge left guard.
Right.
And really the only solidified guy is Dawkins at left tackle, which is a good one to have locked in. But that's your line, and you're going to put 7 or 8 guys to compete for it, and you're going to pretty much have center, right guard, right tackle on a competition, with the other 2 being pretty solid. So, and
even with the new guys, I did not look at the contracts at Bodine or Newhouse Cup, but I know that the other guys like
Bodine 2 for 5,
like Mills and Dukas have deals that you can get out from under.
And they're all the same deal, honestly. And that's
right. You're on your 2.5 a year deal, which if you can make half of an offensive line out of that, I'm all for it. And if you need to get rid of the rest to make a little bit of room, then that's what you do. But I do like, kicking tires with these guys and just trying to figure out a way to make it. And we had some decent offensive lines back in the day when we were just finding Urbix out of, cut season and guys like that. Who was the right tackle? Eric Pierce, who was very good for 2 years and fell off. But those were guys you
was
just
bad,
start
good,
rotating
bad,
down.
good. These linemen go bad, good, and people don't really think about the scheme and how important that is. And
It absolutely is.
so yeah, I mean, Newhouse is a flyer. I mean, he's making $2 million. I mean, Bodine's making 2.5. Groy's making 2.5. Mills is making 1.5. Mills is making 2.1. Miller's making 2. Dukas is making 1.5. So these guys,
if you can build a line out of those guys, you're not paying any of those guys 10. You're not paying 8.5 for a right tackle or paying Cordy Glenn's deal, even though they kind of still are. But it's if you can build a line out of that's pretty decent. I think that's great, and not have to spend the draft capital this year, because I still think that there's places that we can go elsewhere with it.
Right, I agree with that. So I think line's one off the table. I think most of the defense is off the table, except to me a linebacker at this point. You might see.
I mean,
we need
Edge
a nickel and a
done.
Edge is done. You have a lot of money tied up there. Defensive tackle with Kyle. I mean, Bridge defensive tackle, but you have a lot of money tied up.
I think D tackle might be where one of those 4 or 5s go, but I don't think that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's the biggest need right now, especially
no,
with
it's
the
not the
money
biggest
that's
need right
invested
now.
there.
I'd love a first round pick behind every position. That's the number one thing people need to remember. I want a first round pick right tackle. I want a first round pick center. I want a first round pick defensive tackle. I want a first round pick nickel.
And we're probably going to have to use 2 of those and one next year to go get a quarterback this year. So you just don't really know.
I'd love a first round pick at all those positions, but you're going to need to put 4s and 5s in there and hope to hit something decent. Milano level. I mean, that's what you're looking to hit on, like Milano level starter with potential. I mean, that's what you're hoping for with this. And that's all you can do with your picks. I mean, you can't just, of course I want a 1 at every position, but I just don't think on defense at this point, depending on what they do at inside, I don't think you can just go and grab, use those assets on D. I think they spent a lot of free agent money personally on D. I think you need to go and address receiver bad. I mean, almost 2 at this point, depending on Zay. I think you need 2.
Yeah, definitely somewhere on the roster, but there needs to be a second pass catcher at this point, or things are going to look a lot like last year, no matter who's playing quarterback for this team.
Yeah, I just don't think it helps. I mean, you have Charles Clay, who's always a solid all-around player, but other than that, you have Calvin Benjamin, and you don't have anything there for.
By the way, both of those players get hurt. Like
they get hurt, and
there's definitely needs to be something done with pass catcher, because at this moment we're worse off than we were last year, even with injuries. So it's something that's got to be addressed, and
agreed.
We could go high with it.
Well, what an action-packed Locked On show today. We're going to come back at you actually we're going to do a draft focused show this week as well. We'll talk about trading up, what happened with the Jets. We haven't gotten live on that yet. So we'll talk about a couple of things, and hopefully some more news breaks as well. It seems to be every day during the week. So I want to bring you that on our show another show this week. But between Zay and receivers and linebackers and the linemen we signed, I think that was just a super action-packed show, Jason.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would be fine if they held off with a little bit of news until tomorrow or the next day so we can fit it all in.
That sounds like a plan. Really appreciate everyone tuning into Locked On Bills. Another really, really good edition. And look out for our new episodes coming soon. And I'm Kevin Nasseri. That's Jason Shannon.
Thanks, guys.